Math. A thing created by Romans to make the life of high school kids terrible. For my math project, I will be explaining one of the most confusing things in high school yet. Quadratic formulas. But before we get to that, what even is a quadratic? Well, imagine there was a football player standing at one side of a football field. He throws the ball and it hits a kid in the back of the head. Slaps the corners down, makes those football players zeros, a little axis here and there. Boom, quadratic. The rainbows of math. Or upside down rainbows at least. Now, quadratic can be written so many different ways, like standard form, vertex form. We're going to be focusing on standard form. Standard form is a way to write a quadratic, and you need it to actually use the quadratic formula. To write it, you first need ax squared, which means x times x, so we start out with a little floating 2 called an exponent, plus bx plus c. The C stands for... Stop it. The C stands for the constant who is constantly screaming. Oh, I get it. It's constantly screaming. That's very clear. This is what a standard form quadratic equation looks like. Remember, the A, B, and C are actual numbers, if this was a true equation. Now, let's turn this into... Whoa! What is this? Where are the numbers? Let me explain. Using the power of the quadratic formula, we can solve any quadratic equation in the world. Hunger, world peace, bad hairdos. If you can turn it into a standard form equation, you can solve it. So, from this point forward, it's sort of like a puzzle. So let's use our standard equation and turn it into this. So, let's begin with the B, or in actuality, the opposite of B. In the original standard form equation, if the B was a positive, it would now be a negative, and vice versa. Then you have this thing, which is going to be used to give us our two answers in a minute. Then you have the square root. Now let me tell you, square roots are jerks. If you're a perfect square, he'll just let you out of his house totally unharmed. And if you're a non-perfect square, he'll beat you up until something does come out. Inside the square root, you have normal b squared minus 4. I'm not sure why there's a 4 there, but Miss Woodard told us to do that, so don't question it. Times a times c. Then you divide all of that by the world's strongest number, 2 times a. And that is the quadratic formula. You now have the power to plug in any number you want into the quadratic formula and find an answer. Now, you may be wondering, okay, that's great and all, but how do I graph it? Well, remember this thing? This will give you your 1 to 2 answers when you solve a quadratic formula equation. These answers are what you put on your x-axis. These are your zeros, your football players. And if you want to know the y-intercept is, it's whatever the c was. So, now you know. Go and graph the world, my children! Before I end this pain-inducing video, there is one more thing I want to bring up. The discriminant. The discriminant can actually tell the future by whatever b squared minus 4ac is. If the answer is greater than 0, then you will have 2 solutions, 2 football players. If the discriminant is 0, you will have 1 solution. And then if it's a negative or less than 0, stop. You will not get any solutions in the end, just some imaginary numbers. That's why it's so important to know the rules of the discriminant, because you might just be wasting your time. So, I hope this video got me a good grade in math class and maybe help people who are struggling. So, get out there and find the answers to the universe, my pupils. That is, if you could turn it into a standard form equation. Bye.